several, actually, I can find out.
Yep.
But yes, this is a dream of Johnny's for sure. And it became partially mine once I started talking to Johnny about it, so we're trying to make it happen, okay? So about every 3 months, we hope to have one of these, different speaker, different things. Tonight will probably mostly historical.
That and some other.
Maybe
comments.
just-
There are some others, okay.
We're gonna go through historical to start with, and then we're gonna get into the stories.
Okay.
Those chairs.
No, they're empty.
Most of you know who the speaker is.
Yeah.
Jody's done a lot for the crew. He's been not only just a member, he's been a board member, he's been a trustee. He is the
built this
voice,
building?
currently the voice of Lafitte, if you know him as the MC for our events. I think the proudest thing he is, he's grandpa. Ladies and gentlemen, Jody Villar.
Thank you. Into this. As Jeff said, I think all y'all know who I am, know how long I've been here. I joined the crew in 1986. That means I've been here 39 years running this organization. Let's go back before we get to the crew. In the late 40s, about 1948, 49, there was a man named T.T. Todd. He was a wholesale distributor, had a business here in Pensacola. He was also the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He had an idea that what they needed to do to attract tourism in Pensacola was to come up with some sort of a celebration. So at that point in time, they got to looking, and Pensacola was under 5 different flags. So they came up with a fiesta of 5 flags. If you look the word up fiesta in the dictionary, it says something about parade, processions, and celebrations. It comes from either the Spanish or the Latin American words. So they started. Well, they went on and they started with that. Then, let's go to, take it forward to July 15th, 1954. All right, the crew of Lafitte was started. That man right there, Harrison Wells, was the first Lafitte and the first president of the crew of Lafitte. When they came up with the idea and they started it, I'll tell y'all this, the next day I turned 16 years old. I'm sorry, 6 years old. By the way, I just want y'all to know, I feel like a damn Baptist preacher.
Hey, send the coffer around, because we can use it.
Look, don't worry about it. That gentleman got that big cowboy hat on. Wait till you got the end of this thing. He's going to be passing that, okay? Anyway, so Harrison right there. Harrison started his program. And if y'all never knew, I grew up in downtown Pensacola. Come on in. Come on. Harrison, I grew up in downtown. I'm good. Y'all sit on the front row and don't feel like a Baptist preacher. But Harrison was one of these. P.T. Barnum didn't have crap on Harrison. Harrison was one of these. He could walk up to you and he could start talking to you. And if you had $1 in your pocket, you give Harrison 75 cents of it. Harrison's family owned Wells Paint and Glass. It was at the corner of Bain and Palafox. Okay? So Harrison, he come up and he starts. So Harrison goes down and gets this guy right here that looks like Colonel Sanders. His name is Johnny Cox. Johnny Cox owned 2 shoe stores in downtown Pensacola. One of them was called Johnny Cox Lady Shoes. It was in the unit block of South Palafox Street. He owned another one called Cindy's. And it was in the 100 block of South Palafox Street. So then they started to recruit. Then they went around the corner and they got this guy right there. That guy right there, his name's Philo Turner Jr. Philo Turner Jr. was the executive vice president, and his family owned it, of Pensacola Buggy Works Chevrolet dealership. It was at the corner of Jefferson and Intendencia. Now, what is Pensacola Buggy Works still in existence today?
Yes.
Yes, where?
Pete Moore.
Exactly. Somebody been watching TV. Okay, but where did it come from? It started Pensacola Buggy Works from Tommy Thomas Chevrolet, then went out, Tommy Thomas is when it went out. But it's Pete Moore Chevrolet. So they continued on and they started recruiting. They got 5 businessmen to start with. And then they went out and they just continued on with it. They ended up with 19 businessmen. So, June the 8th, July the 15th of 54 is when they got started. June the 8th of 1955 was the first ball. Okay? Now, the first ball, naturally, Harrison Wells. He was the first Lafitte. All right, there was a lady. Her name was, she was the wife of a man named Owen T. Ward. They heard Toby Ward is what it was. The Wards, if you now start watching all this, because you'll see it all comes from downtown business people. The Wards back then owned a tugboat company. All right, so he was a businessman. His wife became the first queen. Later on, I'll tell you that the tugboat company of the Wards, it kind of dissolved. And Owen Ward went to work for Brown Marine. Robert Brown, his uncle, Uncle Sherrill. He went to work over and retired from Brown Marine. So, now that we're off and running, right? First parade, May the 15th, 1957. If you notice how this thing has always evolved, because the Fiesta celebration was always in May or June. So now it's starting to make sense. The first parade that Krewe put on, there were 9 floats in that parade. Each one of them valued at $1,400 a piece.
That barely paid our gas bill.
That's it.
We spent that on liquor last month.
$1,400 a piece. There were 10 bands. And what they did was they went to Mobile and got a bunch of horse units out of there to come over here that were in Mardi Gras organizations. All of that started to roll. So then they kept on. They kept working. All right, so then the parades got started. So then after that, as things started to progress, you'll notice that Johnny Cox became a president right there. All of these people that are underneath him had something to do with it. So then with these floats, I guess none of the ladies, I mean, some of y'all may have been in the old building over there next door. But if you look up on the wall over there, the floats that they built were on just wooden wagons. That's all when they had metal wheels. Well, when they got the idea and they started putting their heads together, what they were gonna call it. Well, once again, Mr. Promoter here, he says he gets to think, because he always thought, everything was a big mystery and spooky and all that. We'll call it the Krewe Lafitte, after the pirate, John Lafitte. So they decided that they were gonna dress up in these bright costumes, but they wanted the parade in conjunction with the Fiesta celebration. And they wanted it a night parade. All right, so they didn't have generators back then to put on floats, but they wanted a night parade and they wanted lights on a float. So how do we accomplish that? What they did was they put banks of car batteries on those floats. That's what they did. They took car batteries and put banks and hooked the lights to them, and they put on a night parade and rolled it. All right? The floats wasn't really anything to basically kind of look at, but they were nice. All right? So then those floats, they started to outgrow them as they grew. So the floats that you see in these buildings today, the base of all of these floats are on what they call a hay wagon. The first ones that they ever purchased, they purchased out of a Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Wow.
That's where they came from. All right? If you've ever been down here, you'll see that we have trouble turning. Those floats are not like a regular trailer. If you take one of them apart, which we've done, and I'll get into that with some of these photos. All it is you got a front set of wheels on them, and there's a long pipe that goes to the back that hooks to the back wheels, and that's it. Okay, it's not like a trailer. So they went on and they started building floats as they went along. Well then, they had to have a place to put those floats, right? Well, they were gonna build this building. Lynn Gilbert sitting right there. I'll tell you, this gentleman right here, that's her daddy. All right, her daddy signed a loan to build that building over there. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right. Wasn't my mama mad? Yes.
So that's been going on for years.
That's it. Miss Jody, she like to, what is this? She like to run Mr. Roy off, but he did. Mr. Roy's the one, he went down to the bank and he signed a note and mortgaged part of his house on top of that. To build that building next door to put floats in.
Cause he loved the cruel of fate.
That's it.
Amen.
That gets us in trouble a lot, doesn't it?
So, now
Yes,
they're
yes, it
starting,
does.
now they're starting to build floats. And these floats are getting to be bigger and bigger. Well, all of a sudden now, here you got all these floats, you got 9 of them. Believe it or not, when I got into Krewe in 1986, this building was not here. Okay, it was only that building there. And what we used to do over there was when we took the floats in and out to the parades, we would take those floats and you would shove them in there and then you would turn them this way. And you would stick them down the wall on both sides of it. Then you would run the last ones down the middle. And that's how we got all the floats in one building. So we would take them out, okay? So, let's go back now to the parades. We're getting into the parades, they're doing the parades. So, what they would do was, prior to a parade, they would have a by invitation only cocktail party. And that cocktail party was held at the Hotel San Carlos. That's where it was at. All right? So now, they haven't gotten back to Mardi Gras. But however, if you go back through the history of Mardi Gras, you will see that they will tell you if it had not been for Krewe Lafitte, Mardi Gras would not have existed or even stayed in Pensacola to this day. They were responsible. But when you get to here, what they would do was they would bring the floats to the municipal auditorium. That's where they would have the balls, right? So keep in mind, I said that the first ball was June 8th of '55. The old municipal auditorium was erected and opened in February of '55. Now, I'll give you a little piece and then I'll get back to that. There was a restaurant in the back end of the auditorium. What was the name of it?
The angler, no, not the angler.
Angler, that's way out.
It was a seafood restaurant.
That's okay. Read-
Wow, I just got shot down hard.
The angler is one of them honky tonk bars out there on Blue Lake.
What
About
they
to
do,
reopen
they
that
have
bar.
really good food at the angler.
Does anybody remember the name of it? It's called the Harbor View. Harbor View. It's called the Harbor View. It overlooked the bay. Okay. So they would bring the floats down to the auditorium. Even when I got to Krewe, we had took the floats, they bring them down there, they circle the auditorium. Get them around there, then everybody, all the men would go to the auditorium, they got having a few drinks. The rule was no alcohol on the floats, no smoking on the floats. You got on the float, and I guess the liquor angel showed up and booze on the floats. But anyway, they would leave the auditorium, and once they left the auditorium, they would go up Halifax Street, and there's some stories about that later. I told you, I get you history. But anyway, they would go up Halifax Street to Government Street. They take a right on Government, go to Jefferson, take a left on Jefferson, go to Garden, take a left on Garden, go to Halifax, take a right on Halifax, go all the way up Halifax Street, come all the way back around, and go all the way back to the auditorium, and then they would drop the guys off. Well, the ladies were auditorium. But what would happen is, when they first started it with this, that crown we still have today. It's over there. And what they would do with it was there was a hook in it, still in it, but they would suspend it. All right, by invitation only, business people would go to this cocktail party. That float right there, come here, Bubba. There you go.
Come here, Bubba.
This is now,
I'm Vanna tonight.
this has been a while ago, Anyway, that float right there is known as the skull. Hold it up. That's the skull. That float was still in existence when I got into the crew. That was the #1 float. The board of directors and the Knights and Lafitte rode that float. So that float would make a circle, come back down Halifax Street. If you notice, all these ladies are standing out here. Those ladies are maids at the coronation. That float would stop in the middle of Halifax Street. They would bring all the ladies out, the queen, and then the knights would toast their maids. So then they would load them all up on a bus and they would take them to the auditorium for the ball. Once they got finished with that, this float right now, what you're looking at, the flame motor is still in existence. That is the #1, the Raven, the big Raven. All right, the big Raven is that float. We took it all apart. Jim Cox, who was right there, he had floats that year. But anyway, so he took it, that's what it is. All the rest of the floats that you see over there, there's some pictures over there. They'll show you what they used to look like years ago. This will tell you what these floats look like. These photos are in 1972.
Look at the dragon.
Yeah.
You get chain power, it's some of it.
Yeah. Those photos passed.
Yeah. Thank God we're here.
This is chain power.
That's the board.
That was Blackbeard. There's the parrot. There's Blackbeard. Who has the shell? You got shell. Robert, you got the shell. Okay. I'll tell y'all a quick story about the shell. That shell right there, okay?
That the mermaid on the front needed some cream around.
Yeah, we have that. When we redid that, well, that's the float that shell that has the dolphins on the side. We sewed those dolphins over there. All the dolphins were stuffed with burlap. And then there was burlap, and we sat and we made them, and we sewed them, and we put them on that float. That float right there. The mermaids were on the back of it, the shell was on the front. So we take the shell off the front, and we put the shell on the back, and we take the mermaids, and we cut them off the waist, and we put them on the front, and we put dolphins by them, right? And we throw them out during the parade. Well, that building over there used to have a phone. Had a landline. So I called down here, if we were working down here, and somebody picked it up and say, crew barn, you know, and that was it. So we put that float in the parade, right? Mermaids on the front. We down here working one night, the phone rings. The lady on the phone, she says, I want to talk to somebody that, to file a complaint. They turned around and said, hey, Jody, come here.
Talk to this guy.
So anyway, I said, what? And they said, there's a lady that she wants to date, and she's on the phone. So I get on the phone, and I said, hello? She said, are you with that organization that has all these floats? And I said, yes, ma'am, I am. She said, well, I have a complaint. And I said, okay. I said, what's your complaint? She said, y'all exposed a naked woman to my child in the parade. Because the mermaids didn't have any kind of, just mermaids, right? But y'all exposed my child to naked women. So then consequently, we went and got them coconuts and we stuck them on the So then they have no more complaints, all right? So we had coconuts on the job. But anyway, so we worked along, but the pictures that you've seen, what we did was, we used to have a guy come over here from Mobile, and he was at Mighty Gras, and he would come over here and he would charge the crew about $3,000 to $5,000. And he would go around, he'd put paper mache on these floats, and he'd put a little tinsel on them there. He even took beer cans and cut them and turned them wrong side out to make them glitter. And so he would do that once a year. Don't come on up here, don't worry about it. See, now I don't feel like I'm back. So anyway, he would do this stuff, and he would charge the crew whatever. All right, well, he came over here one year at Mardi Gras, he did it, and he always brought himself a transistor radio. And he listened to his music while he was tinkering with the floats, right? But he went back to Mobile, he forgot his transistor radio, and he died. So the longest time, we kept his radio in there thinking that somebody would come get it. Nobody ever showed up, all right? So we started then to redo the floats ourselves, but we really wasn't real sure what was gonna happen. So these two gentlemen right here, Bernie Rummel, Cliff Andrews, they got in Cliff's truck and they drove to New Orleans. And they went to that float barn in New Orleans. And they got over there and they started talking to them about how they did their floats, what they did. And while they were there, it started to rain. Well, there were two floats sitting out behind this barn, but nothing was wrong. And, you know, they were able to be somewhat weather resistant. So they asked them. So what they did was they came back, and the octopus that just got sold was the first one. Bernie, he had floats that year, because on the board then everybody had floats. Bernie had floats, so the first one was the octopus that we just did. We took the octopus, and what we did was we took, and the way it was done was you take strips of cotton cloth. Used to be a place called White Sands Textile up on Pace Boulevard. We would go up there and buy these strips of cotton cloth, you know, like 4 or 5 cases that were about this damn big. I mean, it's more than you can see. But what you do with them was you would dip them in regular paint, latex paint. And then we would wrap the float ever how we wanted it. And we put clothespins on it to hold it in place. You put chicken wire on it. Put chicken wire underneath it. You made your shape. You put the cloth on there. You put clothespins on it. And then that held it on there. So then once everything dried, we had 14,000 clothespins in that building. But anyway, once everything had dried, then what you did was you came back, you put your base coat on it, whatever you wanted to, and you painted them. Well, by doing that, they were not waterproof, but water resistant. In other words, they could catch, you know, if they got caught in the shower, it wasn't going to affect them, because one year at the fiesta, they were coming back with them, and it started pouring down rain, and the poor old parrot's head ended up in the middle of Main Street, trying to get it back. But what we did back then was, the board member that had floats was here when the floats were pulled out. They had to come back, and they stayed here till the floats were put up. Then they were able to go to the ball. They've changed that some now. But as we go forward, you see all these things. Now, for some of y'all, I think all of y'all know, the top row of these photos are all past presidents. The second row underneath them are their Lafittes, is what that is. So, every one of them, these people here. A lot of the history that I've got stuck in my head and all that came from that guy right there, Burton Moss. I had 2 uncles that was in the Krewe Lafitte. One of them got in about 2 years after it was started. The other one got in about 4 years after that. One of them, he worked at the base. The other one was a judge. And when Vern was on the board, they tried to get him voted to serve on the board, but he wouldn't do it because he said it didn't look right for a judge to be on the board of this organization. He just kept it separate. So a lot of the knowledge that I had came from them. But Vern, he had, and right there, Vern was actually supposed to be the president of that right there that year. But that was the same, this is the same year of the bicentennial. And Vern, if you knew Vern, knowing Vern, okay? All right, so he wanted to be the president of Krewe Lafitte during the bicentennial, come hell or high water, and he's gonna make it happen. So Vern, by the way, this young man right there, that's a Krewe. We got, you know, we're gonna fix him up. We got. He's learning.
We didn't get him a pirate hat.
That's it. But anyway, as things walked along, like I said, all these people here. Now, Scott's in here, Jeff and all them. Yeah, I'm not sure now, but I will tell y'all this, that when I was the president of Krewe Lafitte back then, going into Fiesta is your biggest event, okay? I mean, Mardi Gras has turned into a party. And probably for the board, it's a run now. But going into Fiesta back then on this, with this organization, you had to have at least $23,000 in your checking account to make it through Fiesta. Or you would, you'll write more checks off that board if you're the treasurer at Fiesta in that year than you've ever seen. Well, anyway, does everybody know about the Equestrian Center on Mobile Highway? It's called the James Robinson Equestrian Center. This gentleman right here is James Robinson. This gentleman right there is Earl Cronin. Both of them are bankers. And what the Krewe Lafitte did, and these industrious businessmen that we had back then, when they got ready to put on Fiesta, they went to the bank. They floated a 90-day interest-free loan and put on Fiesta, and then paid for it after that. So they sold all the tickets and everything else, but Krewe Lafitte had no money going into Fiesta. It was all them, is what they did. So as we rocked along, then we come around here, and like I said, all these people here are all of them. Now, where's Arthur Brown? Louis Brown's brother, there's Louis right there. Let me see if I can find Arthur. Y'all all know we have cannons on the floats, right?
Of course.
Right? Well, they used to, there's always a cannon on number one, because that introduced Lafitte coming down the street. And then there was another one on there, right there. There's Arthur right there. He was the president. So they had one on number one, and then they decided to put one on another float. Well, they went to the auditorium, and they were having themselves a ball that night, coronation. And Jerry Potts, that used to be a city policeman, later on became the chief of police. He was in traffic, so he goes down there and he gets Arthur out of the auditorium, right? He's got him out there, and Arthur was having a ball until Jerry started talking to him. And Jerry told him that somebody took a beer can, stuffed it down the barrel of that cannon, and he shot it at that cannon all the crowd, okay?
Do not try that now, please.
So, you can't, and I'll tell you the reason you can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't happen. So, they decided to take all the cannons off the place. Well, then they talked him back into it, so they said, Lafitte's gotta have, at least Lafitte's gotta have one. You gotta have them, you gotta make the announcement of Lafitte coming. So they talked him back into it again, putting them on there. Well, then in one Fiesta parade, they took 2 cans of baby powder and stuck it down that. And it went everywhere. All right, but we're moving right along now. When we get to
Where would be good?
right here, this is Jack Walker. All right. 1986 is when I came into Krewe, and that was the president right there. All right. Cecil Arnold, they call him skate.
Skateboard.
He'd go everywhere. Anyway, I went on the board of directors right here with Jack Walker as his secretary. And at that time, when we did, this building was not here, but it was an empty lot and it was property. So we decided that what we would try to do is to buy the property. Well, the old Frisco Railroad, which was no longer in existence, had a right-of-way that ran down that side. So Johnny Clopton lived over there in that corner house. Johnny jumps on it, he buys this piece of property, the Frisco Railroad. We turn around and talk to Johnny, and Johnny sold it to the Krewe. All right, so we're talking about it. Well, then we said, well, we need to build another building because we're running out of space. So we built this building. So I'm the secretary. They start talking about it. So Jack looks at me and he goes, somebody's got to go to the bank and sign that note. Yes, do. So I show up at the bank, sign the note to build this building and everything else. Well, about 2 hours after I signed it, one of the businessmen in the crew, he calls me, he said, hey son, he said, somebody said you thinking about signing the note to build that building. And I said, ain't no thinking to it, I've done it. He says, well, you realize that if the crew goes belly up, he said, you're responsible for that note. And the only thought that was going through my head when he said that was, if the crew goes belly up, and I'm responsible for that note, but guess what? I now own 2 5,000 square foot warehouses in myself and pay that crap. And I can get 2 machine shops and I'll be retired, okay? So anyway, but we built the building. And at the same time, somewhere along here, Louis Brown had gotten in with some people in Mississippi. Everybody knows who Bill Preston is? You know, Bill Preston's daughter on, you know, parade people down there. Bill Preston was a freighter captain on big freighters. Okay, he went to school and all that. Well, his father-in-law had a connection in Mississippi with some people. Louis got to talking to him, and the next thing you know, Louis is going to Mississippi and talking to people over there. So then, all of a sudden, we get this idea now, we're gonna build a traveling float. That's that one sitting out there, the little Raven that was there, right? So everybody kind of frowned about it, about Louis building it. All right, so then the crew members get together, and they go to what? Tommy Brown's shop, and we build a little Raven. So we take that to Mississippi. Well, at that time, when you were on the board, or if you were a Lafitte, then what would happen is, at Mardi Gras, you would parade here Friday night. Lafitte and the Queen would come by the barn because of the fish fry. They would leave here though and go to Mobile. And then when you got in Mobile, you checked in. There was a group over there, you know, Bienville. Yes, it's Bienville. That was Bienville.
We got some old school people.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you,
No.
but anyway, you would go to Bienville. So then you, when you get over there, that night, what you would do is go to a party with Bienville. Then you would get up the next morning, on Sunday morning, and you would go to a breakfast and a gift exchange. Then you would leave the gift exchange, and you would go back and you would get dressed. And then you would go back to the auditorium. And Bienville had a parade on Sunday afternoon, okay? It was the widows of, Joe Kane. Yeah, okay, the widows of Joe Kane. The Joe Kane parade, the man that started it all. So then what you do is, you know, the float itself went to the National Guard Army. Mobile PD would pick you up, the motormen would. And they'd come by there and they'd say, let's go. Okay, so they take you down there, you get on the float, you go parade. When you come back to the auditorium over there, you got off of that float. And when them motormen went by and hit the side of that float and said, we're rolling, you better get your butt gone, because I'm gonna tell you what, you get me to take a ride. So anyway, we go over there, and of course, Lafitte and the Queen were introduced at the end of the ball. So there had to be at least 2 board members that stayed with them. At that point in time now, everybody had already started, some had already started going to Mississippi because we started Gulfport. Jim Cox, right here, he owned a wholesale distributing company, and then we had a guy in here named Richard Langford that was a furniture salesman. So they started making contacts over there. So they go over there and they get this motel, so we're gonna go to Mississippi with Mardi Gras. So now you Lafitte and the Queen say, now you're sitting at the auditorium for 1 o'clock in the morning. You leave the auditorium at 1 o'clock in the morning, how you're about to go to Mississippi. And you get in a room, and then you think you're gonna sleep on Monday because there's nothing going on. Everybody starts hooping and hollering and beating on your damn door saying, get your ass up, let's go. All right. So, but anyway, Monday was kind of a play day in Gulfport. All right, so then Tuesday though, and then of course they feed and everything else, we cook. I mean, we take up a whole motel.
122 rooms.
There you go. See? But we take up a whole motel up there. So we had a good time. But Tuesday you would get up and you would leave the motel and you would go to Biloxi. And you would get into a parade in Biloxi, and that parade was about 2.5 hours long. Okay? And then you would go back to the motel, and you would hang out there for a few minutes, and then you would get dressed again, and you would go to Gulfport, and you were down there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon in another parade. Okay? And then you did that, so then you went back, and of course you did what you wanted to do, got up Wednesday and came home. So that was the altar and Mardi Gras back then. All right, well, we saw all this stuff over there, trucks and everything else. So naturally, that was the first year I was the secretary, so guess where all the prep got started?
I remember that.
Yeah, everything got stored in my room. Well, we used to keep on going, you know, and Mardi Gras was good, and Biloxi, everybody loved it, everybody loved Gulfport. Well, back years ago, and for those of y'all that were, you know, had been to Mardi Gras, you know about Juanita. Oh, yeah. Well, see, before Juanita, what we used to do is we had this, and I told this thing out there at the pool party, they had this Whitman sampler box about this big. And they used to decorate it, and there was a pair of Cruel Feet ladies' underwear on it, some old cheap ass beads and everything. But you would get it, and you had to hold on to it. You were responsible for a year. You had to go back the next year. And it had to be in the same condition that you left it, okay? Well, Frank Alvarado, he was my treasurer. All right, we go to Toomey's over there and we're buying beads. All right, so Frank keeps walking by this frog, right? And he tell me, I don't know how many times, finally, Steve Jim said, Frank, you want that frog? And he goes, yeah, I'll take it. And I said, Frankie, what are we gonna do that frog? He said, hell if I know, but we're taking it. So we bring the frog, so we named it Juanita. So everybody knows about Juanita, because some of these people in here, including myself, Juanita's, you know, step-parents. Yeah, step-parents. And I told it, all right, well, then, of course, Juanita's family grew. Lady in her husband was in the crew, he passed away, John Gaffney. John Gaffney was something else. Okay. You know, John was a joke from the word go. But anyway, Miss Barbara, she fit right in. That's it. There's someone, but anyway, I don't know. She is right there. That's her right there.
Yeah, there's
With
Bebop with Hubie.
Yeah. She was Hubie's queen. This right, Hubie was looking to 51st. This is Hubie. He was a year after me. Miss Barbara's right there. All right. So Miss Barbara, though, she got this little frog and named it Hubie Sue. Miss Barbara is also responsible for the bone. Okay? And what happened was we had a gentleman in the crew named Bill Bass that was an accountant at CPA. He did all the books. And every year when we'd go to Mississippi, he had the same room. He would get it right on the corner. And of course they did room decorations. And Bill used to put a sign in the window with his Mardi Gras decorations that said, single man looking for single woman, come on in, don't bother knocking. Okay? So anyway, Miss Barbara takes and she boils this bone for God knows how long to get everything off of it. And drilled it, and then I think John drilled it and put a chain on it. So then the bone was given to Bill, and it was supposedly to bring him good luck to find a woman. Well, guess what? It worked, because he found a woman and he got married. Okay? But the bone, but no matter who it is, if you get the bone goes everywhere you go.
Amen.
All right? And you gotta keep the bone. So, yeah. Yes. Then the year of Mardi Gras every year, you yourself get to pass the bone on to everybody. But however, one year in Biloxi, or in Gulfport, I should say, me, you know, I wasn't president yet, and I'm still one of the instigators. All right? I found a way to find these tattoos, you know, like kids have that you stick on and you wet and you rub them. So anyway, I got this row of tattoos, right? So I'm going around and everybody's having fun with them. And there's an individual in this room today, okay? And he's sitting over here and he's got a pirate shirt on. He's on the third row. And he's laughing like hell right now. He's got a video. So anyway, Ted is over there and he's sitting there. So Ted comes over and he says, where did you get the tattoos? And I said, I haven't made them. I said, why? He said, well, give me some of them. So I ripped off a bunch of them, right? I didn't think anything, I just ripped them off, and I said, here, go have fun with them, you know, so he takes off. Well, the next thing I know, him and Pam both are missing. Well, then, 3 hours later, they show back up. Pam looks like a poster child for a tattoo party. I'm not kidding. And then she's standing there and I go, Pam, did we have fun? She said, I can't show you where some of them are. So, okay. But this crown, we'll get back to that. This crown, we still have that crown today. We used to take that crown to the bayfront when we did the balls down there. And we used to hang it in the middle of the bayfront. And when the queen would come in, well, it was flooded, but they were lighted. And it was always, you know, and we called it the Queen's Crown. So when we went to the Civic Center, that's my butt going on.
Well timed.
When we go to the Civic Center, the Civic Center wanted a bunch of money. They wanted, you know, a couple of grand to hang this thing from the, you know, from the speakers and the scoreboard up there. So we said, nah. But what we did was when we would take it down to the auditorium, the way we would transport it is we would take it down, get back a pickup truck in there. We set the crown, because the crown's light. It's real light. It's not heavy at all. We'd set it up on the back of a pickup truck. 2 board members would get in the back of the pickup truck and hold the crown, and we'd go to the auditorium with it. Okay? And then we would hang it, we'd bring it back. So it's set over there in the old building upstairs. In fact, it's still there. And when Byron Gilbert was the president, Byron decided he was going to pay the price, and we took it to the Civic Center. And Sammy Rogers was his queen. So when she came out, they hooked the remote up to it. So when they hung it in the middle, and it stayed dark. And when Sammy came out and walked out, they hit the button, and the crown lit up. So nobody knew what to do or anything. Nobody really knew anything about the history of it. So, and then Jeff said something about, you know, me being the voice. But if you can ask Robert and David over there, if you ever get around me in a script, I have a red pen, but I can work on it. They'll tell you. I mean,
The red pen is vicious.
So anyway, and I write stuff. There's stuff in that script that I've thrown in there. Of course. You know, everybody says, and I did something for him. But anyway, they couldn't figure it out. Byron came to me. He asked me about it. He said they wanted to use it. So anyway, I thought about it, and back in about 1958, but it didn't happen at St. Carl's, but it did happen at the auditorium. A lady named Mrs. Dawn Lynch. She was the queen of the Krewe. She was actually crowned by Governor Villar Collins, okay, as the queen. So what I did was I just put in there that the crown that was just illuminated is known as the Queen's Crown, right? And that at one point in time in the Krewe history, our queen was crowned by Governor Villar Collins, is what I did, and added that in there. So that's where that crown, but there, from what I understand, Scott.
I'll tell, go ahead. The crown's coming back for coronation this year.
Very good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Not fair. Have a crown for travel.
So,
No, she won't.
but.
10 out of 10, highly recommend, would do it again.
I was lying down up front.
Still lights up.
Hey,
guys.
now Candy came to me one time and she said, I tell you what, I got a great idea. She said, I'll be queen again if you'll be Lafitte.
The retreads.
But as we have progressed through the years, and I guess y'all are probably wondering about this right here. When I was Lafitte the 50th, okay? And when I was the 50th, Charlie Merritt's wife, Pat McDonald. Yeah, Charlie's wife, Donna, and a couple of the other ladies decided they were gonna go by these ribbons, red, white, and blue ribbons. And they took aluminum doubloons that we had, not silver, and they sat down with every one of them and spray painted them gold. And they just took them everywhere we went and handed them out, you know, anybody and everybody that wanted them. David Lynn found that thing and brought it down here and stuck it up there, and it's been here ever since. Okay? But what you have to remember about this organization is everybody that's on that top row, okay, all the way down, no matter who they are, okay, every one of them has come in here. They served 7 years on the board of directors. Actually, you know, it turns out to be 8. It's a lot of fun, but every one of them has made their mark. The crews existed from the fact that these people and the people that work with them, because it's a normal progression. You start as a secretary and you work your way up. There's no guarantee from 1 year to the next that you are actually going to go. You got to be voted on. So if your butt don't work, you're gone. Okay? They're 7 of the hardest working people in the crew of people. All right? There's no doubt about it.
Agreed.
You know, so each one of them on this top row, you know, including my little dumb self down there. Okay? We have all done it. All right? But somewhere all these things along in here, where everything that goes on, is that there are stories in the crew. Okay? And so let's go and say that. We'll start with the dragon and the gray ghost. All right? Back years ago, you did not get on the dragon and you did not get on the gray ghost when you came into the creek. The only way you would get on either one of those floats is if somebody knew you and there was an opening. So they were consequently the bad boys of the crew. All right? And what would happen is they would go to the general membership meetings, and somebody in there would go up there and they would get all the float list and they would fill it out. So then when everybody got there, the float was full. All right? So we talked them into putting the cannons back on, but they're not like they are today. So we had one, I was on the Gray Ghost, to mention that, all right? But we were on the Gray Ghost, and the cannon on the Gray Ghost back then was a little bitty, they call them a regatta starter pistol. It was about this big, is all it was. And we had it mounted on a piece of wood, and it set up on the bow of the Gray Ghost. What you had to do with it was it had a straight pin and a wire and a ring, and the pin had a notch in it. So you had to pull the notch in the pin and pull it back. Then you had to open it, stick the shotgun shell in it, close it, okay? You couldn't close it and then pull it, because it wouldn't work. And so there was a guy that was in the crew, Bob Barnes and our buddies, but anyway, he had a guy that worked at PJC, and we called him. We found out how much black powder we could put in one end and so much big and make a lot of smoke, right? So we loaded them up. So like I said, you know, I'll remember now what I said at the beginning, there's no alcohol allowed on the float. Okay? All right? The angels look out for those that need them. So anyway, we're up there, and Bob's standing there, and we're both on the bow. Of course, the Gray Ghost at the time was the only wooden float we had. And we're standing there, and Bob goes, watch this. And he popped that cannon. When he did, he loaded one a little bit too much, and that black powder came out the side of it, and the float caught on fire. So I'm over there, and I'm pouring beer all over the and I'm putting the damn fire out. So we get off, and we get off down at the auditorium, and when we get off down there, the first thing I know, here comes whoever right here, Don Morris.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Who needs my help?
No, son. I say, son, what? I'm standing on and set the damn boat on fire. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, the hell you do. And I said, so anyway, they took the cannons off the float. So then we went to work and we decided that we were going to redesign it. And what we did was we went and got 4 single barrel shotguns. And we had Bill McCurry's son, who was a welder. And he welded the barrels and all to where we could take these single barrel shotguns and put it and weld it into the barrel he made. And we put a screen over the end of it. So you couldn't put a beer can or baby powder in there and shoot it, okay, or anything else. So I bring one of them down here, and like I said, they were still over there in that building, the boardroom was over there. So I bring one down there and I set it on the table. And Don's looking at it. Him, Bruce, all of them. I said, we'll just go from right here, Jim Shepherd, Kermit, Don Brunson, Louie. Okay, they're all looking at it. What's that? And I said, this is the new cannon. I said, and they kept looking at it. So we sit there. Finally, Don said, okay, here's the deal. You put all 4 cannons on the floats. You, okay? You're in charge of it. Nobody can have anything to drink before shooting one of them, and you pick who shoots it. I said, Pete. So we put them back, all right? They've been there ever since, all right? But the thing about it is if y'all remember, I said that we started at the auditorium and came up Palafox Street, right? Well, when the parade get up there, we get up there in front of Trader John's. And we and the Gray Ghost, well, all of us on the Gray Ghost, we would go buy this stupid crap like swords about this long that would light up, and I mean, you name it, okay? So we would fire that cannon. Well, all of the girls would come out of Trader. All right, now, there's a gentleman sitting directly in front of me right now with a red shirt on. That he has resurrected the tradition, and I have to hand it to him. But we would fire that cannon, and all them women would come out of there. And we'd start pulling this junk out, you know, that came from China. And we go, and they go, oh, I'd like to have that. So, give me your bra. We want that. Give me your bra. So it was this. You know how y'all do that crap without doing anything? So then they would take them off. We had a rope between the 2 masts on the Gray Ghost. What we would do with it is that we would lower that rope down, and we'd take them bras and we'd take clothespins and we'd put them on.
Because we had 5,000 clothespins.
We'd hoist that thing back up, and down the parade we'd go, and here's all the bras hanging from the all right?
By the way, we got room for more bras.
So, but yeah, we'd put all them bras up there and we'd go parade with them. Then, there was a time that there were 2 strippers out of Traders that they put on the Dragon. And they put them down, made them sit on the floor. And then they went through the parade route. It was still, when they were still at the hotel. And 2 of the ladies that was up there at the hotel came out, and you could see them, so they go to the auditorium. And the first thing you want to know is who in the hell were them women on that float and what they were doing hiding. Needless to say, you know, that was something else. Then there was the year that Jody was on his first year on the board of directors. First Mardi Gras, okay? I'm standing in front of the auditorium and somebody walks up and says, have you seen that shit going on back there? Excuse me, little man, where you at?
Sorry about that.
Thank you. But have you seen, and I said, no, what? They said, you need to go look. So I go around the auditorium, you know, on the back side, where the bay is, and about that time you hear this voice go, holy shit, here comes Jody. I go to the Gray Ghost, and I walk up there and I get on the Gray Ghost, and there's 2 of these fine, outstanding young ladies, and they are putting on a show. So I said, well, good evening, ladies, how are y'all? They said, oh, we're fine. And I said, you know, where did we come from? Sammy's. And I said, Sammy's, huh? Yeah. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, how is it that y'all came to come down here to where these floats are staged? Oh, well, we came down here by invitation. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, who invited you? Cliff Andrews and Jody Villar.
Nice job, Jody.
So anyway, I said, well, let me ask you a question. They said, yeah, what's that? I said, just exactly what does Jody Villar look like? Oh, well, he's a guy about this big, okay, and he's kind of heavy set, and he's got little reddish hair and everything else. Well, what that description is, it wasn't him, Jim Fordham, it was his brother Larry. And Marty Marine. They had went to Sammy's and they told the girls to come down. And they told them that their names were was Cliff Andrews and Jody Villar. So, yeah, so there, you know, but anyway, back when Jim was the president of the Krewe thing, he came in and we were in there. If you'll remember, I told y'all Jim Cox had a wholesale distributing company. Jim used to be able to get food and stuff like that. Well, we were still over there. Well, Jim comes in there one time and he's got this big box of Hydrox cookies. Sunshine Bakery, look like Oreos, right?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, the thing was, with Hydrox cookies, they're better if you stick them in milk, they hold together, but Oreo cookies are sweeter. That's what they used to say back then when Nabisco made them, right? So we're sitting there with these Hydrox cookies, and that thing I know, Big Daddy, I used to call him Big Daddy. Big Daddy looks at me and he said, "Hey, son." I said, "Yes." He said, "Go to Shoreline and get us a gallon of milk." So we have the board meeting, and the next thing you know, this is on a consistent basis. We're sitting in there and we're holding a board meeting, and we're drinking. We got cups of milk and dipping Hydrox cookies and milk, running the crew. But yeah, each one of them is, like I said, as we moved along, everybody has done everything that they think they can do. If it hadn't have been probably for a lot of good help though, because these people that were here, these are the only, you know, you get in these positions like Scott, Johnny, all, you know, they're on this board. And like I said a while ago, they're the hardest working people that are here. But you got a lot of help, you know, from crew members. And with the combination of what you would say is some of the talent on the board, and also with crew members that are willing to pitch in and help, willing to support it, willing to get involved and everything else. That right there will tell you that probably is the main reason the crew has been in existence for 69 years. Okay? Now, there's one other factor in here. You know, there's a lot of second generation pirates that have been in the crew. For instance, like right now, my son, he's a second generation. All right? Okay? But however, there is one fourth generation pirate that's in the crew with me. And he is standing right there in that red shirt. This was his grandfather right here, that's Tommy Brown.
Amen, Tommy, yeah.
Yeah, and I was Tommy's Lafitte. But Tommy, Cliff Andrews, he came before me. If you didn't, those of y'all that knew Cliff, I mean, you couldn't find it. You could put, Cliff was something that Cliff, he'd say, "Son, let me tell you, I'm gonna tell you, son," and get that finger going. But he used to come out there, because we'd all meet down there at the shop and everything else. And Cliff would pull up here and he'd come in and he'd say, "Y'all holding one of them damn clandestine meetings down here." We'd say, "Yeah, Cliff, we talked about your ass, okay?" But that's the thing, and that's kind of where things have went off. But like I said, all these people, this man here, he was a businessman downtown. He used to own the Gulf Coast Mercantile. The one that you see up here that is the two-time president, right there, that's Sherman Barnes. Sherman Barnes owned a fence company around here. It was called Storm Fence Company. It used to be right down here on Barrancas Avenue, all right, where it's split. And he was a county commissioner at one time. And when Bill Davis, who was the sheriff back years ago, got in a little touch, okay, and the governor was going to remove him from office, he made Sherman Barnes the sheriff of Escambia County even, okay? So, but he is probably, he's the only one that I know of that did 2 years back to back.
Cox.
Well, back to back.
Brian. Well, Brian did it because of the pandemic. Yeah, no, see, Brian did it because of COVID and the pandemic, all right? I mean, this was 2 years of just straight, you know, business with the crew. Because during the COVID years, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot going on and everything else with it, even though Brian did do it. But all of them, so the ones that you see here, all of these Lafitte's, and I will tell y'all, I think everybody's probably knows about it. But from when we got started, right here, Tommy. from here all the way down to here with clay, with the exception of 1 year. I have him seed every single feet of it.
We thank you, Jody.
And, yes, sir.
Explain the corner, the black corner.
The black corner with those is those are all past, past. Yeah, red, they're just is what it is. That's what the black corner is. That indicates that those folks are all passed on. And this one here, that was Dr. Bill Dean. He ended up being, he's passed away, but he ended up being a gold pirate. Bill McCurdy's not up there. He's a gold pirate now. Richard Warsnop, who's down there.
Right
here.
Down here.
Okay, over there. Yeah, right there. He's a gold pirate, and Walt Coggins is a gold pirate. So, no,
No, I think Richard was.
Skip
our
Weaver.
goal.
Skip Weaver.
And then
Skip
Skip
Weaver.
Weaver.
no, and Skip Weaver is
Yeah,
a
he's
gold
a
pirate.
Those are.
Not yet.
So,
Frank's got 3 or 4 more years before he's gold.
yeah, Frank's got a couple more years. I've got several years about if I'm still around. But it doesn't matter. But has anybody got any questions?
It's in honor of not with us any longer pirates, Elijah Palmer and Bobby Tronev. And that has regard to do with those lovely young ladies that were hiding in the float.
That's it. Oh, I'll tell y'all an interesting fact about Bobby Tronev, right here, okay? Board of Trustees, y'all have heard about the Board of Trustees for the Krewe Lafitte. Board of Directors are responsible for the day-to-day operation of the Krewe Lafitte. The Board of Trustees are responsible for all the properties of the Krewe Lafitte, right? If anything goes wrong in this building, air conditioning goes out, they go to the trustees. The board doesn't have to deal with it. It's set up that way. It's not, and the thing of it is everything came about on a gentleman's agreement. You will not find any of this information that I'm about to tell you in black and white in the bylaws. It's all been on a handshake, or yes, that's what's gonna happen. That's the way it works. And the board of directors can't go borrow money in the name of the Krewe Lafitte without consulting with the board of trustees. All right, Johnny is currently the chairman of the trustees. He took my place. I spent 16 years as a trustee for the Krewe Lafitte. 8 of them were as the chairman. The first 6, I was still on board when it came to me. But however, let's go back to Bobby Trump right here. All right, well, somewhere about Gordon Jernigan right here. All right, Gordon Jernigan right there. All right, every one of them right along here, they started sloughing money, is what they started doing, because they wanted a rainy day fund. All right, and the rainy day fund was, and that's the reason that me finish up, yeah, that you hear about the trustees, you know, report as far as money. They took a separate account, and that's it. So they start sloughing money. Well, when it gets to Bobby Trump, they were putting it in a shoebox, and they were giving it from 1 year to the next. Well, when they get to Bobby, there's $10,000 in the shoebox. And then they got scared. What we gonna do? How we gonna tell the membership now all of a sudden this epiphany has occurred and we got $10,000, you know, that the Krewe Lafitte. So what they did was they waited. And Bob waited, and he kind of waited to the end, all right? And when he did, he said, oh, he said, by the way, he said, you know, this year, he said, the budget wasn't quite exactly what we thought it would be, and we were able to save some money, and we managed to come up with $10,000. And we're gonna start the board of trustees, so that we'll have money to fall back on, right? Yeah. So, when we, and back to, I'll tell you real quick, when we went to Mississippi, the first Lafitte and the first queen that went to Mississippi with us was Lou Boudreaux and Kathy Morris. Brian's mom.
Bubbies and Kathy.
Yep. those were the two. They were the first two. And Kathy was in the middle of the street, and Biloxi dancing to the music. She was it. She was having herself good. But those were the first two. So, anybody got any other questions or anything?
And I just want to thank you, Jody. That's what I want to do. I was joining the Feds. He's the one that said, boy, you ain't joining the Feds. You're joining the field.
That's right, I forgot about that.
We had a metal table from the, too.
Yeah, my God. Well, you know, years ago, I mean, when they first got started, be nice to hear. To the coronations, and they would actually give out like silver goblets. They gave out little silver trays like business cards go in and everything else.
We have a couple of those.
Yeah, but they used to do that back, you know, when it was
Mugs.
a little bit.
Mugs.
Mugs, yeah. And
Big
stuff
white
like that,
mugs
yeah.
and,
But, now, what I did was, just so I think I still have one or two of that. But when I was with Lafitte, Bernie's wife, Gracie right there, Bernie Rome, this month right here, you know, when you got into somewhere along in here, you know, they were hard pressed, I mean, you know, we took off. But Bernie's wife, Gracie, was my queen, and Bernie and I had talked about it. And he was going to South Florida. So he checked on it, and we had these bottles of wine that were about this big. We had them made, and it had the Krewe crest on it, and there were different colors and everything else, and it had me and Gracie on the label. We gave those out. You know?
Hey, Jody, you still got some of the bottles at home?
Do you? Yes. Are they empty?
No, all of ours.
Hey, look, you done opened the door, and I bet you they are. But anyway.
I think we got 15 bottles from different, remember when we were giving those out? Some in bags, some in, all with a label on them. Mine are all full.
Yeah.
They ain't good, but
No, I know.
they're all.
But, yeah, those are some of the things, like I said, I mean, it's done over the years and everything else. Jeff, like I said, there's been a lot of hard work involved, you know, to hold it this long. A lot of good people, there's been a lot of good people that's come through those doors and everything else. Fences down. I'm fortunate enough that I'm still here. I can say that, you know, in a way, because, when you start talking about it, I mean, Jack, I was his secretary. Jack's no longer with us. Big Daddy's no longer here. Huey's not, Bernie's not, Cliff's not. Okay, I am, Cox is, Tommy's not, Charlie's not, Frankie is, Ron Smith's not. So all those people that I serve on that board with, that's what's, you know. But anyway, maybe, I guess, you know, but like I said, that's it. Anybody else got anything? Yeah, you know, that's pretty much, I guess, what we can say about what's happening down here. There's a lot of things and a lot of other stuff. All right.
Thank you, Jody.
This thing right now, okay, the bar is up.